Today, we pit the Toyota Fortuner against the Ford Endeavour. Sherco TVS Racing is all set for the Dakar Rally and Autocar Confidential.
Well, this is the battle that everyone's been waiting for. It's the clash of the titans. It's the heavyweight match. It's the Ford Endeavour versus the freshly launched Toyota Fortuner. Both these SUVs are in their new avatars. They are mammoth and have 7 seats and are built tough. This Fortuner has moved from simple to extravagant. Thin headlamps flank a sharp V-shaped grille. There's a nose that sticks out and the sunken chin, with a dramatic kink along the window line at the C-pillar, which all add drama. The tail lights have gone slim too, and there's tons of chrome on every side. The Endeavour is a little more understated but still good looking. It uses a more conventional upright, jacked up stance with large areas for wheel travel, making it look very much the dominating SUV. The squared off proportions, the huge grille and the bulging wheel arches all add to its beefy appeal. They are different, these two, in their looks. Whilst the Fortuner is in your face, the Endeavour stands quietly handsome. Though the Toyota Fortuner's interior may have more flair and more drama, I like this neat, simple, clean layout of the Ford Endeavour. It's smart and still pleasing to the eye. The light beige interior with the low dash line and the panoramic sunroof really open it up and make it feel nice and airy. In fact, the low dash line makes visibility better from the driver's seat too. It comes packed with features like terrain response system, where you have 4 different drive modes, and of course lots more. There is a high-tech instrument panel which is made up of an analog speedometer, flanked by 2 color screens that display everything from a tachometer to off-road settings to media and fuel information as well. Like I said, the Fortuner carries its drama onto the interior too. The central console is framed by 2 leather-bound vertical pillars and the double stitching feels rich. The same goes for the wood-trimmed steering wheel, which is festooned with buttons. The dash has a sort of cowl running over it and many layers. But all of it looks a bit too busy. There's perhaps too much going on here, with too many colors, too many textures and too many materials. Once you look closer, you also notice the plastics aren't really all that great, especially the wine-colored forwood liberally used around the gear lever. It doesn't feel as classy as intended to. Both cars get a wide range of features in their top spec forms. The Fortuner does get ahead with a few unique features. The list of things that Ford does have that the Toyota does not is much longer. Whilst we were stationary, we also checked out the last row of seats. Now, getting into the Fortuner is a bit of a haul, but you have a nice little grab handle here on the side that you can hang on to in case you want to haul yourself in. But what's really easy is getting into the 3rd row of seats with this one-touch flip. It's really easy access. And once you're inside, you realize that space is not bad at all, and even seat comfort is a lot better than the Endeavour, and you can recline these seats, which make them extremely comfortable if you don't have luggage at the back. The Endeavour's 3rd row is not so easy to access. You have to lift up the heavy middle row, and once you're inside, you sit very low to the ground and knees up. The 3rd row of both these cars split and flip to expand the luggage bay. The Ford's trick one-touch power folding seats are handy when your hands are full, whereas the Toyota's seats have to be lifted up and clamped to the side to free up most of the space. Both cars can take a big suitcase with the 3rd row up, but the Endeavour has a slightly lower loading lip. Moving over to the middle row, we set off to find out how these two match up on the road. The ride quality of the Endeavour leaves you feeling like you're sort of floating or gliding over the surfaces of the road. It's got a supple, pliant edge that sort of isolates you from everything that's going on underneath the tires. It doesn't let much filter through to the passengers at all. Yes, there is a certain amount of movement on undulating or bad section of road, and it is more than the Fortuner, but the movements are not sort of sharp or intrusive or jarring, and you still feel comfortable in this back seat. The Endeavour has a slight edge on legroom, but both middle rows have recline and slider functions, so one can adjust the amount of legroom required. The Endeavour seats are comfortable and offer good support, but it's the Fortuner that offers better thigh support and overall better cushioned seats. When considered on its own, the Toyota Fortuner has good enough ride quality, but when you compare it to the Endeavour, it does feel the firmer of the two. Sharper bumps and potholes filter in far more to the backseat of the Fortuner. As you pick up the pace on an undulating surface, you do get tossed around as well. Still, it is a closely fought battle in the backseat, with each one having their advantages, but let's find out how they are behind the wheel. First up, the Fortuner. Even though overall visibility is actually quite good and you have a lot of adjustment to the seat to get yourself quite high, the line of the dash, especially the central part, is quite high in the Fortuner, and it just makes it feel bigger and more imposing to drive. It's not just the high dash, but even the way the steering is that makes it the more imposing of the two to drive. The steering is also much heavier here, especially when you're turning at low speeds. And after a while of driving, especially if you've been driving the car the whole day, you begin to feel it. But that heaviness that makes it tougher to drive in traffic conditions makes it better to drive on the highways. Now, the steering may feel heavy while U-turning and at lower speeds in the city, but as you pick up the pace, it actually weighs in quite nicely, gives you a good sense of confidence. Even around the corners, you get good feedback. In fact, the good part about the Fortuner is that it has good body control, and roll around the corners is much better contained than in the Endeavour. Still, go over a bump or a speed breaker and it does have a sharp kickback, which is another disadvantage. In fact, when you do go over the speed breaker, you also notice the shortcomings of the gearbox. Slow down for a speed breaker, and should you want to floor the throttle and get going, the gearbox sometimes responds too sharply, kicking down aggressively. This makes the power delivery feel a little jerky, but that's only if you are aggressive on the throttle. Be gentler, and the fact of the matter is that the Fortuner's brand new 2.8-litre four-cylinder motor that makes 177 HP and 450 Nm of torque is the one that feels the better of the two in traffic. The Fortuner's engine is quite responsive, it's nice, so say you slow down and you have to get a move on again, all you have to do is actually just tap your foot on the accelerator. You really don't need large inputs to get going again. It feels even better when you put it in power mode with the auto gearbox in sport. It also has eco and normal modes, which the Endeavour does without. The pep lowdown makes it great for hustling the big Toyota in traffic, and the 6-speed auto does a good job of keeping up too. However, the Toyota is best when you shift up without stretching it all the way to the red line. Now, the one thing that the Fortuner has that the Endeavour doesn't have are paddle shifts, which comes in quite handy, especially when you want to get a quick move on, make an overtake, or even when you have to slow down in a hurry. In fact, everything about the Fortuner begs you to be less aggressive while driving it. There is an audible clatter from the engine at most times, and if you push it hard, you definitely hear it quite loudly. Shifting over to the Endeavour, there are differences that you notice instantly. The first thing you really notice, especially getting out of the parking spot, is how easy and light the steering of the Endeavour is. I mean, it just makes this feel like a car, not like a big, huge SUV. In fact, it is 150 kilos heavier than the Fortuner, but it just doesn't feel like that. It feels far more agile and nimble on its feet. Making a U-turn in the Endeavour is way easier and less of a workout than in the Fortuner. The lower dash line and the better seating position make the Endeavour feel less bulky than it looks. Now, the steering of the Endeavour may feel light and easy at low speeds, but when you're cornering at higher speeds, it still gives you a good amount of feedback, weighs up really nicely, and I think this is the strength of the Endeavour, its steering, which really makes it adaptable to both kind of conditions, whether it's ambling around in city traffic or cruising out on a highway. The Endeavour's 3.2-litre 5-cylinder engine punches out 200 HP and 470 Nm. The Ford gets to the 100 mark quicker than the Toyota, but what's more relevant is how these two motors make their power. The Endeavour's engine may not be as responsive as that of the Fortuner, but it's still good enough, deals with most conditions easily, and once you get into the meat of the power band, it really has a good amount of punch. There's more lag to get through at the bottom end, but it's more eager to rev out, letting you access a much wider power band once you do. So it does have the punch, but you just have to go a little further to access it. The Endeavour's engine has a healthy dose of torque and it offers up performance quite easily. Put your foot down and you get a big giant surge. Cruising at highway speeds is really, really easy. As far as refinement is concerned, it is also audible, but it does have the advantage. It feels definitely the more refined of the two. Yes, it also does make a sound, but it's more a roar than a clatter. Just combined, with the lighter steering and the way performance is delivered, the Endeavour just feels the easier to drive SUV. There's really very little that unsettles the Endeavour. Even mid-corner bumps really don't harm it, and it just drives in the most unfettered, unruffled manner. Now these are full 4x4 SUVs, but our test terrain didn't really provide serious off-road conditions, just small runabout dirt tracks. The new Fortuner has moved from full-time four-wheel drive to select four-wheel drive, so you can use it in two-wheel to save fuel most of the time. It also has a low-range mode in case you want to do some serious rock crawling. The Endeavour also has the low-range mode and it also lets you lock the rear differential, but it doesn't let you disengage the front drive shafts manually. What it has instead is an electronic traction control system that is called terrain management. It also adjusts all the car's parameters depending on the mode you choose. Our test team, however, did manage to do some more serious off-roading, and here are some snapshots to tell you why the Fortuner came out ahead. Both have incredibly high approach and departure angles, meaning they can ascend and descend really steep slopes. However, though the Endeavour has the higher ground clearance on paper, its longer wheelbase means its breakover angle is smaller, meaning it's not as good at crossing tall obstacles as the Fortuner. All things considered, it's the Toyota with the stronger low-end run and manually controlled 4x4 that is the more effortless on the rough stuff. Now, the old Toyota Fortuner was king of its segment and hard to dislodge. But this new Fortuner has a very worthy contender in the form of the Ford Endeavour. The Fortuner has the better third row and it has the better overall seat comfort. But in other respects, we feel that it is the Endeavour that edges out ahead. It's just the ease of driving of the Endeavour. It feels light on its feet. It's nice, easy steering that makes it comfortable to drive in traffic. It doesn't feel as big and imposing as the Fortuner, and even as far as performance goes, it's good. As far as space goes, it's closely fought between the two, but in terms of overall comfort, the ride quality of the Endeavour is better, being more supple, and it isolates you better from the road. It has the bigger boot, and it comes at better value. So for all those reasons, we feel the Ford Endeavour is the better buy.
Coming up ahead, how Sherco TVS Racing is living the Dakar dream.
The Dakar Rally is the most grueling off-road race in the world. While TVS has been involved in the Dakar since 2015 with a tie-up with French off-road bike maker Sherco, the big news this June was when they announced that they had roped in Indian racer Arvind KP to participate in the 2017 edition of the Dakar. Since then, Arvind has been training to take on this immense challenge that awaits him in South America in January. And we got a chance to catch up with him and the Sherco TVS team in France to understand that process.
TVS Racing and Sherco TVS Rally factory team has laid the whole program out for me, so it was not really a new thing. I was initially introduced to international racing on the Baja scenes, and which was like a like an eye opener for me to understand how international rallies function and how you put yourself in situations like that. Navigational part, the Rally of Libya was the first navigation rally for me. Thanks to the experience the team manager and the team has got, and the support from TVS Racing, and the time that I've spent here with the Sherco TVS Rally Racing team has helped me do much better than what was just a dream.
Partnering with Arvind for 2017 is Adrian Medger, who has raced the Dakar once before, as well as 9-time Dakar veteran Joan Pedrero. Joan is also playing a critical role in helping to train Arvind for this incredible 9,000-kilometer rally raid. TVS Racing is fairly confident that with such a versatile team, a strong Dakar finish is within reach. But what prompted TVS to take on this challenge?
Dakar, that was, I think it was a natural result of, moving around, because we used to participate in Sri Lanka also for the motocross races. Arvind KP has been Sri Lankan champion in 2011. And after 5 years, we have once again won the Sri Lankan championship with a Sri Lankan rider who is also TVS racing rider. So after these rallies, we thought of doing something better. And Dakar was like a dream.
This is a deal between TVS Racing and Sherco Rally Factory. As far as the biggest benefits for us are concerned are two-pronged. When you compete at this kind of a global event, where all the big names in motorcycles, all the big racing outfits in motorcycles are there, I think TVS Racing gets a chance to compete with the best in the world. By doing so, you tend to become one of them. And what is more important is that the benefits over a period of years will be perceptibly there for you to see.
The Dakar is not an easy feat, and Arvind said it's all about keeping expectations reasonable.
The primary goal is the same as being the first TVS Racing team rider, and to be finishing the whole rally is in good terms, and in the best ways possible is going to be the primary and realistic goal.
After interacting with the Sherco TVS riders and the team, we are naturally a little interested in finding out what their bikes are all about. Now, probably we won't get to ride their Dakar bike, but they've been promised a ride on their other bikes like the 450 Endeavour out here at their test track. And as you can see, I'm all kitted up and really excited to find out what they're all about. The Sherco TVS RTR 450 Baja bike is the basis of the team's Dakar bike. It's super light and lightning quick on dirt. Massive suspension allows it to take jumps with ease, while knobby dirt tires dig in and give you a ridiculous amount of grip on the loose stuff. Still, for someone who's not used to off-road riding, it requires a complete recalibration of all senses, not to mention amazing levels of fitness. The Dakar bike, on the other hand, is a whole different beast. It gets even more high-tech suspension, which has variable damping. Soft for the initial uptake, but stiffening up as it compresses further. And it's significantly heavier too, weighing in at about 130 kilos as it carries over 30 liters of petrol in a total of 3 onboard fuel tanks. The chassis is shared with Sherco's 450 Endeavour bike, but it's heavily reinforced. With all the bodywork in carbon fiber, this beast costs several €100,000 and is individually tailored to each of the team's riders. Now, while we spend our day riding off-road on the 450 Baja, Arvind and his teammates spend their day practicing on the massive RTR 450 Dakar bike. And let me tell you, even on the Baja bike, it was a crazy experience riding off the road like nothing else I've ever done. Now, my respect for off-road riders was already very high, and now it's gone up even higher. I can't even imagine what it takes to ride a bike like this at full speed all day long on treacherous terrain in the Dakar. Well, what we can do is wish all the best to Arvind and his team for Dakar in January, and well, we can hope that they'll get some great results when the Dakar comes to a close.
Hello and welcome to Autocar Confidential, that part of the show where we tell you a little something you've probably not heard before. Now this week we've got news that Mahindra is preparing a Toyota Fortuner rival. Yes, they're going to be launching a model which is going to sit at the top of the Mahindra range, and actually it's the next generation SsangYong Rexton which is really going to be playing the role of a Fortuner fighter. Now the Rexton is due for replacement. We saw it in concept form at the Paris Motor Show as the Y400. Now that really is a concept. The production version is going to be out in March or April, and Mahindra is going to bring this pretty soon to the Indian market. But interestingly, this car won't be badged a SsangYong but will be badged a Mahindra, and might even have a few design tweaks to give it a bit of a Mahindra look. That means when the Rexton is finally replaced by the production version of the Y400, the SsangYong brand will be gone too. So in the future, all the SsangYongs that come to India will only come with the Mahindra badge. Well, that's it from me, but keep watching the Autocar show and Happy New Year.